Welcome back to Courtside Classic, everyone. It's your girl Mira here, pouring you the absolute hottest tea from the tennis world today. And let me tell you right out of the gate, what we are thoroughly diving into today is not just a simple story about a tennis match, and it is definitely not just a story about a new branded t-shirt. What we are witnessing is an absolute, undeniable masterclass in modern sports marketing, a monumental and historic moment for Southeast Asian representation on the global athletic stage, and quite frankly, the single biggest, most aggressive financial flex we have seen from the executives over at Nike in a very, very long time. If you have been living under a rock or simply haven't been checking your sports feeds, you might not know exactly what is going on with the Eala fever. And yes, I know some of you in the comments are going to tell me it is pronounced Eala, but whether you say Ayala or Eala, the indisputable fact remains that the entire international sports world is screaming her name right now. The absolute fever that took Iga by storm, the unstoppable cultural movement that has been completely and utterly redefining the lucrative business of women's professional tennis, has now officially crossed continents. It has crossed borders. It has crossed oceans, and right now, at this very second, it is taking the continent of Europe by storm in a way that literally nobody in the cutthroat sports merchandise world could have possibly seen coming. Eala did not just bring her spectacular, powerful tennis game to Austria for the Linz Open this week. She brought a full-blown cultural revolution with her, and the European market is feeling every single bit of its immense impact. $3 million, 3 days. I really need you to let that sink in for a second, guys. $3 million in just 72 hours. That is exactly what the brand new, highly anticipated Sampaguita collection has already generated in revenue since its official European launch, which was timed perfectly and meticulously with her highly publicized appearance at the Linz Open in Austria. And guess what? Those mind-boggling numbers are still aggressively climbing as we speak. Nike's internal sales charts are literally going through the corporate roof, completely shattering revenue records that their top executives probably thought would take months or even years to approach in a new regional market. Desperate and eager fans across Europe are lining up outside stores, frantically refreshing their web browsers and emptying their wallets, trying desperately to get their hands on a stunning clothing collection that originated from a beautiful, delicate flower that most of them had literally never even heard of before. Eala made it internationally famous. The entire world of sports merchandise, from the boardrooms at Adidas to the executive suites at New Balance, is watching this unfold in complete and utter disbelief. Because if we are being completely honest here, and you know I always keep it 100% real with you on Courtside Classic, this kind of explosive growth is not supposed to happen this fast. In the traditional conservative sports marketing playbook, this kind of niche, culturally specific apparel is not supposed to scale this incredibly big this rapidly. But when it comes to Eala, the usual boring rules of the game simply do not apply. She is entirely rewriting the entire script. To fully understand just how massive and unprecedented this European sales explosion really is, we have to rewind the tape a little bit. We have to go back to where it all originally started. We have to take a trip back to Asia, back to the Philippines, back to that now iconic viral podcast seat where Eala sat right across from Jessica Pegula, who is obviously one of the most respected, established, and wealthy names in professional tennis today. It was right there, in that intimate studio setting, that Eala made a bombshell announcement that nobody in the tennis community was fully prepared for. Right there, in that incredibly candid, authentic, and vulnerable conversation, she officially confirmed to the world that her brand new, deeply personal Sampaguita merchandise collection by Nike was finally going live. I was watching that podcast clip the moment it dropped, and you could just see the genuine, raw emotion in her eyes. She told Jessica, "I was just so happy to be there, and I was like wearing my little flower, and then, oh my gosh." In the very moment those exact words left her mouth, something completely extraordinary happened in the retail space. The fans did not wait. They did not hesitate for a single second. The fans went absolutely, positively wild. Across the entirety of the Philippines, retail stores were flooded almost immediately, online queues crashed, and the early financial projections suggested that the Southeast Asian launch alone could generate somewhere between $1 and $5 million in just the first week of availability. Those numbers alone were already sending massive, industry-rattling shockwaves through Nike's boardrooms in Oregon. They always knew they had a promising star, but this was unprecedented territory for a tennis player so young. But literally, nobody imagined that the story was only just beginning. Nobody could have possibly predicted that the exact same merchandise collection, featuring the exact same delicate flower, serving as the exact same symbol of deep Filipino pride, was about to land right on European soil and casually drop $3 million in just 3 days. Now, here is where the story gets incredibly juicy, and honestly, this is my absolute favorite part to analyze as a fan of the business side of the sport, because what Nike has strategically done with this European launch is absolutely not an accident. It is not some random, fortunate coincidence. It is definitely not just dumb, blind luck. What the executives at Nike have done here is a masterclass in global sports marketing executed with the kind of surgical precision, absolute brilliance, and completely perfect timing that should be studied in university business classes. Think about the logistics of it. Nike did not simply release the Sampaguita collection in Europe on a random Tuesday, put out a basic, boring press release, and blindly hope for the best. No, they are way, way too smart for that. They waited. They painstakingly planned every single microscopic detail. They held their defining moment like a trained sniper waiting for the perfect, unmissable shot. And then, at the exact, precise instant that Alex Eala arrived in Austria to compete in the highly visible Linz Open, Nike pulled the proverbial trigger on the European launch and fiercely unleashed the entire collection onto the continent simultaneously. Let's just pause and truly think about the absolute diabolical genius of that marketing strategy for a moment. Picture the vivid scene. Eala is out there on the tennis court in Austria. She is playing her absolute heart out in the crucial first round of the Linz Open against the heavily favored home country hero, Austria's very own Julia Grabher. Eala is performing brilliantly, under immense pressure, in front of a live, passionate European audience. She is fighting her way through intensely competitive sets, surviving 7 grueling deuces in just one game, facing down break points, and eventually taking down Grabher in a spectacular dominant 6-4, 6-3 victory. She is generating massive, widespread media coverage. She is generating an insane, viral amount of social media buzz on every platform. She is getting high-definition cameras pointed at her from literally every single direction, holding her nerve and hitting those gorgeous, punishing cross-court forehands. And at that exact, perfectly orchestrated same moment, while the European fans are watching her dazzle them on the court and the Filipino fans in the crowd are cheering their lungs out, her beautifully designed merchandise is hitting European retail shelves for the very first time. Boom! Every single fan watching her play live suddenly has a direct, tangible way to connect with her. Every single viewer seeing her highlights on television suddenly has something they can instantly go online and purchase, something they can physically wear, something that ties them emotionally and physically to this extraordinary, resilient young woman they are watching compete and win. If you ask me, Nike literally took a standard, run-of-the-mill tennis tournament and completely transformed it into a massive, live, high-stakes commercial event, and it worked beyond anything they could have possibly projected on any corporate spreadsheet. This is the exact winning formula Nike has been quietly, meticulously perfecting with Eala for quite some time now. Every major tennis tournament, every significant headline-making moment in her skyrocketing athletic career has been strategically accompanied by a carefully timed, heavily curated merchandise release specifically designed to directly ride the massive wave of intense attention she naturally generates. They rigorously tested it in Asia first. They built the hype from the ground up. They built the cultural buzz. They carefully studied the market appetite and analyzed the consumer data. They watched the sales numbers exponentially grow with every single strategic drop. And then, when the critical moment finally came to go fully global, to prove to the doubters that she wasn't just a regional niche star, they aggressively chose the most powerful possible stage to make their definitive move. a prestigious European tournament, a live engaged audience, a brand new untapped market completely hungry for something fresh, something authentic, and something deeply meaningful. And Alex Eala was standing right there in the middle of all of it, under the blinding stadium lights, doing exactly what she always does best, winning tough tennis matches and completely capturing the hearts of everyone watching. The financial results have completely and totally validated every single calculated part of that aggressive strategy. $3 million in 3 days in a market that had literally never even encountered the Sampaguita collection before. Honestly, guys, that is not just conventionally impressive. That is genuinely historic. That is exactly the kind of astronomical, paradigm-shifting number that completely changes high-level conversations inside Nike's global headquarters, that gets the entire global marketing team standing up, taking serious notice, and realizing they have struck pure, unadulterated gold. It loudly confirms what the entire Southeast Asian market already knew deep down in their bones. Eala is not just a fleeting regional phenomenon. She is a massive, unstoppable global commercial force of nature, and Europe has just happily discovered that undeniable expensive fact for itself. But we absolutely have to talk about the clothes themselves, right? Because the aesthetic collection itself deserves an enormous, massive amount of credit for how perfectly well it has landed on this entirely new, fashion-conscious European audience. Because let's be entirely real here. This is not just any basic, run-of-the-mill, lazy piece of sports merchandise slapped with a logo. The absolute visual centerpiece of the collection is this gorgeously crisp, premium white shirt featuring a beautiful, striking, deep green background. And right in the dead middle of it, sitting beautifully and proudly, is the Sampaguita flower in all of its delicate glory. For those who don't know the deep lore, the Sampaguita isn't just a pretty botanical design, it is deeply steeped in beautiful folklore. It is a legendary symbol of pure, forbidden love, eternal sacrifice, and the ultimate birth of hope. It literally means, I pledge or promise. It is clean, it is elegant, it is deeply, profoundly meaningful, and it is visually stunning in a way that completely transcends any cultural background or language barrier. When you perfectly pair that gorgeous shirt with Eala's now iconic signature Sampaguita hairband, the same one Nike famously gifted her in a tiny white box lined like a mini tennis court before Wimbledon, and the pristine, fresh white shoes that perfectly complete the athletic set, the entire collection speaks a universal visual language that absolutely needs no translation. European tennis fans who had literally no prior personal connection to the Sampaguita flower, who had never even heard a whisper of its immense cultural significance to the Philippines as a powerful symbol of purity, promise, and undeniable strength, saw it on a tennis court in Austria and immediately said, I want that, I need that right now. That, my friends, is the undeniable money-making power of incredibly great design seamlessly meeting an incredibly great story at exactly the right moment in time. And what makes this entire campaign so incredibly authentic, which is honestly so exceedingly rare in corporate sports marketing today, is that Eala herself has never, ever been just a passive, smiling, compliant participant in any of this. She is not just reading from a PR script, she is genuinely deeply invested in the creative process. She is genuinely emotional about the cultural impact, and she is genuinely, fiercely proud of what this apparel collection actually represents for her country. My agent sent me over this PDF, she explained, enthusiastically talking about the original presentation of this Sampaguita project that Nike had designed like 3 days or 2 nights before her massive, high-pressure match at Wimbledon. And I am telling you, her visceral reaction to it was everything you could hope for from an athlete. She enthusiastically said it was so beautiful, the underlying message behind it was so great, and she truly felt like it fit her personality and her heritage perfectly. She felt incredibly lucky and blessed. During that intimate podcast with Jessica Pegula, she spoke with such real, raw emotion and such real, profound gratitude about the Sampaguita flower being chosen as the absolute heart and soul of her entire branded collection. She vividly described it as a massive, unforgettable pride moment for her, and as a viewer, you could feel in your gut that every single word of it was 100% sincere. When Eala gets genuinely excited about something, her youthful energy is so incredibly infectious that the whole world just automatically gets excited right along with her. First, that beautiful, authentic energy completely swept through Asia. Now, expertly paired with Nike's masterful, calculated launch timing and Eala's fiercely dominant presence on the courts in Austria, it is fiercely sweeping right through the heart of Europe. Now, I need you all to zoom out with me for a second and look at the much bigger, much more dramatic picture here, because what is currently unfolding between the Nike Corporation and Alex Eala is part of something far, far larger and far more deliberately planned than just selling some pretty green and white t-shirts. Cast your mind back to the Indian Wells tournament earlier this year, where Nike boldly and proudly announced they were officially renewing Eala's sponsorship contract with substantially, and I mean ridiculously substantially, more financial value. Then, just before the Miami Open, they made it totally, undeniably official in the most spectacular, jaw-dropping fashion mathematically possible. They literally opened an entire massive, curated gallery completely in her name, beautifully celebrating her most iconic, breathtaking moments on the court and permanently marking a truly historic milestone for the sport of tennis across all of Southeast Asia.